Hello, lovelies. Welcome back to The Tangent. We are in episode 11, and this story time is one that I think is pretty common, but we don't really talk about it. It involves me going into home affairs and trying to get my ID. So that sounds pretty simple, but turns out no, and I'm gonna share that whole debacle with you now in this episode. So hold on tight and let's get into it. Buckle up, lovelies. We're taking a ride through some of the quirkiest corners of my life on wheels. I'm Katie, and I've been doing this disabled thing since day one. This is not your typical disability education podcast. Every tangent, every detour is a chance to look behind that curtain of disabled life, unravel the threads of confusion, and discover those, whoa, that actually makes sense moments. Eventually, this is the tangent, where laughter is the map, curiosity is the compass, and understanding blooms even in the craziest corners. Hit subscribe, grab your headphones, and get ready to be surprised, because the way to understand why is to embrace the wild, hilarious how. So let's do the thing. Okay, so just for some context, South Africa had national elections on the 28th of May this year, 2024, and I have voted in every election since I became eligible when I turned 18, and so it's important to me that claiming your rights that have been hard won is important to me. So keeping that in mind, here's this story time. So you need an ID to vote. So I wasn't that stressed about it because temporary IDs are available. Important to the story is that I lost my ID last year. Could I have done this admin of getting a new ID earlier? Yeah, I could have done that, but we did not. Here we are. So I also wasn't that stressed about it because I thought that you could just get them when you apply for your ID. Like, you would just get a temporary ID and everything's fine. But no, that's not the system. Here's what happened. Like a week-ish before the election, I applied for my ID. So under the assumption that I would get a temporary one because I applied. So I applied online, super simple, like nothing bad happened. That worked out really well. I wasn't expecting that to be as easy as it was. So everything was on track. But you have to do the biometrics in person. So that was on like the Monday, and I went to Home Affairs on the Wednesday to do the biometrics, right? And I think it's important to know at this point that I have cried in basically every visa appointment that I've had for the last, 3-4 years, and generally government buildings are also places where I tend to cry. So I was kind of prepared for that to happen, but I got anxiety like the second we got into the Home Affairs offices, and so the less engaging I had to do with people, the better. So I had help, so I asked him to he passed the reference number thing to the security people, and they were like, oh, okay, go here. Because when you apply online, it's different to when you're applying in person. It's a whole thing. I don't even know, but it's alright. Also, I have a little, so people, for some reason, like government departments decide to make the desks really high so people can't see you if you're like in a wheelchair, which in itself is a problem and an anxiety inducing experience. So that's fun. So I don't have to speak to them because I just give them the reference number and they're like, cool, go here. And one of the bonuses of being disabled in a government building and a government department is that you don't have to wait in the lines. This is a beautiful thing, and I'm super appreciative. Like, there have to be perks in this disabled thing at the government level at some point, so we'll take that one. So we go stand in this line, and there are like two people ahead of me, and this is to like take your photos and to do your fingerprints and to sign a thing that can go onto your ID. So we go there, and I know already that it's gonna be a disaster because I literally don't fit in the boxes. You're supposed to sit in these tiny little boxes to take the photo, and you're supposed to like face forward and like not close your mouth and not show teeth and it, all of these things. Not super easy for me as a disabled person with cerebral palsy, but you know, we move. So I don't fit in the box, which is ironic and metaphorical, but also very, very practical at this point. And they don't have other solutions. You have to figure out how to fit in the box. So we take my footrest off of my wheelchair, and I have to be like a F1 driver skill level to get into the box. So we do that, and we take the photo, and I come out the box, and we put my footrest back on, and they wanted to try to do fingerprints, and that never works because my hands are interesting. Last time I tried, I like broke two of their machines. So now I'm just like, we can do it, but we're gonna shut down your system. So like, if you don't want that to happen, let's find a different way. So they try, we didn't even try with the fingerprints. And they were like, no problem, we can override the requirement of fingerprints on your application. So I'm sitting there like, beautiful, what an accommodation this is. I love this. And she's like, she says, do you want to do all 10 fingers? And I'm like, yes, please. None of them work well with your machines. They override all 10 fingers. I tried to do the signature thing that you do on like their little digital pad, and I did that, and that didn't work out so well because the system shut down. And I was like, cool. You know, every time I go into one of these government departments or a visa place, like, we end up shutting down the system. And I'm not even trying. Like, I'm not even trying to be, like, revolutionary or anything. It just doesn't appreciate me. So, shut down the system, and they were like, oh, now we have to wait for it to get rebooted. So, the system reboots, and we find out the wonderful news that all of that work that we did before with the photos and the signature and whatever, and the overriding has now been lost. So we have to do it again. I like steel myself for one round of like trying to fit into a box, and now I have to do it again. So we did it again, and this time without the signature because that was the problem last time. So they override the requirement for fingerprints, and they override the requirement for a signature, and they say I am unable to sign. And then they kind of give me a code for when I have to go get my application again, because for some reason, like when you get to collecting your stuff, you have to do a fingerprint, and now like they've overridden it. I don't know. It's a whole thing. So I'm like, cool, bud, thank you. Let's go. I get sent then to like the confirmation guy who checks all of your information to say that it's correct and everything is there, so that you can go to the payment people and pay for your ID and stuff, and then leave with your receipt and have a beautiful day. So we go to the confirmation guy. Obviously he has like a more official name than this, but I don't know, guys. So we go to this guy. He was quite cool, very chill, like doing his job, no issues with this man. But at this point I discovered that like getting a temporary ID is a separate process, that you don't just get one while you're waiting for your actual ID to be approved. Like you have to apply for a temporary ID separately. So he's like, go back to this guy at security and get a form. So I'm thinking that's super simple, we can go do that. So we get the confirmation and the receipt of my actual ID. We go back to security, we get the form for the temp ID, fill it in. You have to get photos. So there's a place like next door to the Home Affairs place. So we did the photos, bring the photos, do the form. We get told go to counter 12. So we go to counter 12. We were met with some hostility. I get there with my form, and the kind of, I guess, the woman in charge, she was kind of grumpy, and she like said to us, who sent you here? Like, why are you back here? What are you doing? So I'm like, no, I'm getting my temporary ID because I need to vote. Right then, I was told that I am not eligible. I'm not eligible for a temporary ID, which is insane to me. And so I'm like, well, what must happen now if I'm not eligible for a temporary ID? How am I going to vote in the election next week? What is going to happen right now? One of the people there, he said that if I have my like receipt and my proof of application for my ID, that would be enough and valid to enable me to vote. So I'm kind of thinking that that's okay, because like the Home Affairs guy told me that was fine. Like surely that's reliable information. So we're like, okay, cool. And now I'm told that I'm not eligible, which is like blowing my mind, but I'm moving past it because I'm thinking that it's all fine because they gave me a receipt. So I go to pay, and the payment person yelled at us, and I was already at like such a level of anxiety that I was on the verge of tears. So I almost cried, and at that point we were like, we need to leave here before I just completely turn into a puddle of tears on the floor. So we left thinking that everything was fine. They were also like, well, hopefully your ID gets here in time. That's not a very good argument to make to have me access my right to vote, but okay. So then we go to the voting station because I registered for early voting. Like, this is another bonus for disabled people. Go do that because it's a lot less stressful and anxiety inducing when there are like 3 people trying to vote rather than like thousands of people. That's my 2 cents for like voting advice at like a practical level. So we go to the voting station. they say, I'm sorry, if you don't have your ID with you, like an actual official ID, you cannot vote. So I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to vote now. I need to vote. This is important to me. I need to vote. I have the right to vote. Home Affairs is not letting me vote. I sort of, for about maybe like 2 hours, I let it go, and I was like, this is so much admin, and I'm feeling like really disabled right now. How hard this process is for no reason. And I just feel really othered in this process. So I got sad about it, and then I spoke to some people, like a couple of friends, and like my PA, Tubby. People got angry that was the scenario and the way that I was treated, and how like nonchalant it was. They're like, oh, like, sorry, you just can't get this. I can't get like official documents. That's insane. So I was throwing a bit of a pity party for a little bit, and then I had a friend message me, and she is awesome, and she was just like, friend, all you have to do is find somebody else to go with you as well, and go back with fresh rage. And this is, I think, really good advice, because you get tired, but sometimes you just have to like sleep on it and get angry about it again and go back with fresh rage. And the fresh rage kind of counters the anxiety, and you go with somebody who can also advocate for you, because I, in that space, don't feel like I will be listened to, and then it becomes harder to be a self-advocate when you feel unheard and unseen and less than. That can be really hard, and sometimes it's okay to take people with you who are feeling more hardcore than you are in that moment and in that environment. My PA and Tubby came with me, and she was super helpful and super resolute that we were not leaving until I got my temporary ID. Like, it can't be that hard. What are you talking about? So we went back on the Tuesday. Voting officially started on the Wednesday. So there were so many people at the Home Affairs that day on the Tuesday to get temporary IDs so that they could vote, which kind of worked really well in our favor, because if you're gonna give like 300 other people temporary IDs and not me, like, that's a big red flag there, buddy. And we have hundreds of people here to witness the fact that you're not giving a disabled person an official document. So that was in our back pocket. So we go in and tell the whole story. We go in to get a temporary ID only, and we fill in the form. We got further than we did the first time. They tried to do my fingerprint, and they could see my fingerprint on the system when I put it in that day. And the problem arose. It was a different team on the Tuesday to the one that we had the week before, which I'm really grateful for, because they were way more helpful and willing to find a solution. But we were also more resolute. We were like, hey, we're gonna be here until you do something. I was kind of panicking this whole time, and then Toby was just like, this is fine. We got it. We got time. They gotta find a plan. It's all good. We sat there, and the guy says, the problem is that we can't verify you on the system. Like, you're not a verified person. I'm not a person on your system. I'm sitting right here. I'm a verified person. I just find it bizarre that I am eligible for a full, like, forever ID document that I can get without fingerprints and without a signature. you can override those things. But I'm not eligible for a temporary ID that's gonna last me like the 2 days that I'm using it for voting. That's madness to me. How is that the system that we have? Anyway, turns out that the actual issue that we have with me getting a temporary ID is that I'm not a verifiable person on their system because they don't have my fingerprints. So when I do the fingerprints to prove that I am who I am, they don't have anything to work against that. Which to me kind of seems like a them problem. But it became a me problem. And so ultimately, what ended up happening was because he was like, I can't verify you. And we were like, so now? What must happen? And he's like, no, I can't verify you. And we're like, well, what are we going to do? And we kind of had a couple minutes of staring down each other and being like, I don't know, you don't know, what we're going to do. He got a supervisor and she was super helpful. She was like, hey, I'm going to try this. I haven't done this in like 2 years. And I can't guarantee to you that this is going to work, but I'm going to try. So what we ended up doing, they had to manually do my fingerprints. So we had to find ink because that's not something that they have generally now because everything is digital. So I think it took like 30 minutes for them to find ink somewhere. And then the guy came with the ink and the form, and we had to do my thumbprints to have them. And then once they had those, they would scan them in. I had to do the fingerprint on the system again, and they then took a screenshot of my fingerprint that they just did now on the system and a scan of my fingerprints in real life in the ink, put that into an email, send it to some higher up person in Home Affairs, and that guy had to approve the fact that I can get verified without having my fingerprints on the system, which took a while. I think it took like an hour and a half, which arguably is not that long in terms of like waiting for government things to happen, but still a while. So they send the email and they wait for the email, and got an email response back, and they printed my temporary ID, and like from the time that they got the email to me getting the temporary ID was probably like 12 minutes or something, which frustrates me endlessly, but we will move on past this. The thing that bugs me the most about this, there are so many things that I can moan about this, but the thing that bugs me in this moment about that is the problem arose because when we did my fingerprints, when they override that on the system, apparently there's a little block thing on that application that says verified or something, and they tick the box, and then that solves all of these problems. But that box was not ticked. So we had like 3 days of like trying to get a temporary ID for me because they couldn't tick a box. So that was fun. Anyway, after I got my temporary ID, we were like, listen, we gotta get this done. So I went from Home Affairs to the voting station, and they were like super stoked because they kind of just thought that I would not vote and take that as a loss. But those guys don't know us as yet, so they don't know how committed to a situation we are or can be. So I got my things, I got my ID, I was like, cool, I can like do my duty as a citizen and go vote. So we get to the voting station, and they were so excited. They were like, you're back, you made it, like you won, good job. And I was like, thank you so much. So Like, I knew that we were gonna get that right. Did I have to cry a couple times? Yeah, but that's okay. We cried and we did it. We achieved the thing. And voting is also interesting as a as a like physically disabled person, because again, I don't fit in the boxes. But this is why it's also good to do early voting. I was the only person there, so it didn't really make a difference that I wasn't in the box. Did have like a little bit of a drama with the like electoral person, because they were like, you have to make your mark while like using the table within the box, and I'm like, lady, this thing is higher than my head, how is that gonna work out? They're not really designed for wheelchair using people. And then she like saw common sense and she was like, okay, fine. So I cast my vote and I did the thing, and that was all beautiful. But what a scenario to like have to go through to get rights that I have, like I don't understand why it has to be so much admin all the time to get what we're supposed to get. Why we have to have panic attacks in government department buildings to get what we're supposed to have. It's insane. I just think that system needs a whole lot of assistance and a lot more consideration of how different people access the process and the system. I'm a systems person. Like, I can assist you. Like, let me know. Call me. We can have workshop it and figure it out. I think it's like taught me a lot though, because like being an activist is hard and being a disabled person is hard. And so being a disabled activist is quite an uphill battle sometimes. But I think I felt really proud of myself when I actually did like get to the voting station and do that, because I felt like I appreciated that right a lot more, because I had to argue with people to get to do that. It was a good moment for reflection. And just for like FYI, the guy who said hopefully your ID will arrive in time for you to vote, that was like 4 working days before the election. I got my ID like last week, and that's September. And I applied halfway through May. So that was some super wishful thinking with that, dude. Ultimately, it was a successful experience. And would I like to do it again? No. Do I learn some stuff? Yeah. Anybody that's trying to do life admin like that, I'm sending so much love and energy and positivity to you, and like just deep breathing. And if you need to cry for a second, go do that. Don't let the system and the admin and all the bureaucratic bullshit get you down, because we need the things that we need. We need to have the systems work for us as well, and include us. Include everybody in the system so that it's easy, and teach people how to do the things to include us in the system, and not make us feel like I'm making your job 17 times harder when you're making me feel 17 times more disabled. We'll leave the episode at that, and I will see you lovelies in the next one.